Hello and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today Great.com talks with Jill Mallet, the programs director of the Calgary Youth Justice Society. If you haven't heard of them yet, they work to engage communities with young people to foster choices and opportunities that build upon their strengths, diverting them from crime. Well, before we begin, remember, as usual, if you're new here to this podcast, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. Hi, Jill, and welcome.
Hi, Dani. Thanks so much for having me. This is very exciting.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, and we are eager to learn more about what's going on in Calgary, right? But I usually begin, Jill, here with a bit of history, right? So, how did the Calgary Youth Justice came into existence, and what were the driving forces behind it?
Yeah, we actually just celebrated our 25th year as a society. So the timing of this is perfect. We're very proud of that accomplishment. It has actually been around even longer. However, that is just when we got formal society status. But in 1996, our founder and our current executive director, Denise Blair, was contracted out at the time. I believe it was through the city of Calgary. Maybe fact check that. Can't say for sure. But she was contracted out back then to establish what are called the Calgary Youth Justice Committees. These are groups of volunteers who, under Section 69 of the Young Offenders Act, deal with first and second hand offenses in their community as an alternative to formal court processes. And what they do is they work with youths, their families, and the victims to find effective solutions outside of the justice system and outside of court. That was 28 years ago, 26 years ago, something like that. Now, today, these are still operational, these committees. We have 13 of them across the city now. And I would say the driving force, like why was she inspired to do this? She saw the opportunity, and more so the opportunity lost for young people involved in the justice system within our Young Offenders Act. So by law, there's this incredible option to give young people a second chance on a bad decision. But without a committee, without a group of willing volunteers, without some processes in place to support the committee's work, that couldn't happen. The youth would not have that opportunity. And so Denise saw the need, and more importantly, she saw the gap. And so she filled it. And now, with the support and care of many, many volunteers and many volunteer community members, I should say, over 300 kids a year are given that second chance on that bad decision that they might have made. And so now we almost see zero reoffense from those kiddos that come through our committees. And so really it works as a win for the youth. It's a win for our communities. And it's a win, especially for our already very overburdened law and court systems.
Well, I'm really impressed with these numbers, Jill. It's amazing to know that you don't have that many kids coming back to the system or committing any more crimes. And we cannot imagine that happening without a community that really welcomes them back. I
Absolutely.
just would like to ask you to help us understand more about what are the challenges that this youth face, because I think I have my own concepts about it, right? We can use common sense, but it's probably still a bit distant from what actually happens. So first, what happens when those kids get into the system, with their families? What is the context? And then what happens when they get out of it?
Yeah, great question. When a youth is charged and is formally charged, they face a number of barriers for the rest of their life, which is a common misperception. A lot of people will believe that once they're 18, their youth file gets thrown away. No one ever opens. It goes into a locked vault and it's never seen again. That's not entirely true. And it depends on the country that they may be existing in and or want to go to. And so one of the biggest challenges youth in the justice system face is opportunity in the future. And for example, travel, if you have a youth criminal record, it's very difficult to travel to the United States. It might be difficult to travel to Brazil. It might be difficult to travel to wherever you want to go when you're a young person hoping to see the world and experience the world. It also holds a lot of people back from opportunities for employment and education as well. If you can't travel, you lose out on a lot of that opportunity. That's one of many, many challenges that youth in the justice system face. I think obviously as well, coming out of the justice system, some of the lack of supports that exist so they can be connected and reconnected to, pro-social communities and communities that really support positive behavior. That's a huge barrier for a lot of kiddos in the justice system. And so our volunteers work very hard to divert that and connect them to community in a way that they can remain positive and or start making more positive choices and honestly feel a sense of belonging and therefore pride in their community and pride in who is in their community and therefore make better choices. So those are definitely some of the barriers of youth in the justice system. Holistically, of course, youth in Calgary are facing a lot of the barriers that youth everywhere are facing, or at least what I would assume youth across, I can probably speak to North America especially, what they're facing, mental health being probably our biggest barrier right now. Mental health addictions are obviously huge barriers that we see come up with the young people we work with. Lack of positive adult connections, that's something that I've mentioned. Many young people don't have a strong sense of belonging to their community. And I think COVID exacerbated that, of course. And I think there's a real struggle to reconnect. Canada especially, we're facing a large influx of newcomers. And these newcomers are not necessarily given the support required to feel like they are connected to a positive community. And so that is that's a high risk situation for young people. We know why young people get involved in gangs. It's for a sense of belonging. And so these are some of the things that we are seeing in the work that we do, and certainly young people in Calgary are experiencing and facing. But I think probably more universally, young people everywhere are facing. And so we do our best to offer that connection and that connection to community in a positive way. We always say our youth face multiple barriers, and that's a way we talk about our young people. We cringe a little bit at the idea of high risk youth or vulnerable youth. I'm using air quotes for you listeners, because that doesn't feel very strength-based. That doesn't feel very positive. What we recognize is young people and a lot of adults for that matter have multiple barriers in their life that make success, however you want to define that, challenging and difficult. And for us, the youth that we see in the programs that we have, they face barriers such as poverty, addictions, mental health. I mentioned that. Food and housing insecurity is becoming more and more a challenge, especially as the cost of living rises. Youth unemployment right now in Calgary is very, very difficult, as well as lack of natural supports and those positive adult influences, like I mentioned. If I may, though, Danielle, I would like to point out that CYJS is actually a strength-based organization, and that's a very important part of who we are and what we do. It's in our organizational DNA to relentlessly pursue the strengths of young people that we work with and youth. We always look for strengths and possibility, not deficit and risk. So if I may flip your question to ask, what are the greatest strengths that you in Calgary or youth in Calgary have? Because that's how we like to talk about our young people instead. Yes, they face challenges. Yes, they face barriers. And we know that, and we're not denying that. Our job at the Calgary Youth Justice Society, though, is to focus on what is working, what is great, what is strong about you. Let's shine light on that. And so I will tell you that despite all those barriers mentioned, young people in Calgary, and I think young people everywhere, are resilient. They are wildly creative. They are so wise and so thoughtful. And they're brave, they are advocates for change, and they stand up for positive change. And I'm always so inspired by the strength and the strengths that I hear every single day from the young people we work with. And I'm always very humbled by their resilience in the face of their challenges, in the face of their adversities, because above all that are all the amazing qualities and strengths about them that we get to see.
Thank you so much for flipping the question.
You're welcome. That's what we do here.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, because and it helps me see things in a different perspective as well.
Right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we sometimes focus so much on trying to understand what is wrong, what needs to be changed. We don't appreciate the driving force, right, that is behind it, that comes from within
Exactly.
us, within these kids. So thank you for bringing this, Joe. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. That's our mission. That's what we do. And, I'll say we talk a lot. We're strength-based to a fault almost. And this is really how we train our volunteers too. What's one of the greatest things that volunteers walk away from after participating in our programs is they have this whole new perspective and a whole new way of looking at not just young people, but at each other. And they have this language of strength-based language. And you're absolutely right. Calgary Youth Justice Society is very innovative, dare I say disruptive in our space, because we really flip the coin on typical youth programming. We aren't looking for what's wrong. That's not our focus. We aren't here to change them. In fact, we're here to say, you don't need to be changed. We need to shine light on what's working, and we need you to be really proud of those things so that you do more of that. And that's really the angle that we come from. And it's very different, and it's hard. It's hard for people to come because, hey, we're adults. We look back and we're like, oh, if only they got rid of that neck tattoo, or they quit smoking, or dumped the bad boyfriend. And it's like, yeah, they could do all of those things and maybe be better. But at the end of the day, they have to figure that out on their own. What they probably don't hear enough of is how amazing they are, and how creative they are, and how strong they are, and how articulate and caring and kind and empathetic they are. And that's my job, which is the best. I get to do that all day.
I think we are up for a run here. Which of us has the best job?
Right? Yeah, I think you're right.
That would be a fair fight.
I think so.
But talking about this, and I completely agree with you about the disruptive side of CYJS. It really is disruptive. It really is interesting. And let's talk about the programs that you have, because I feel like this is your strength, really, how you approach. And one thing that it always pops out in your answers is the community, right? Making them feel welcome, making them feel part of something. So how does that reflect on the programs that you have and what's going on?
Yeah, so happy to talk about our programs. We're so proud of them. Like I said, the youth justice committees have been around for 25 plus years now. They're stronger than ever, seeing more referrals than ever, as the concept of restorative justice becomes more and more not popular, that's the wrong word, more and more appreciated and seen as an option through law enforcement and through our justice systems. We're seeing more and more referrals, which is fantastic. And that's our goal. We want to be able to connect with as many youth as possible who don't need us, because again, they have their own strengths, and but who we can support. I'll say it that way. So yeah, that Youth Justice Committee, as I mentioned, that's been going for 25 plus years. And that program is designed to divert young people from the justice system to avoid those life-altering complications that I mentioned before as well, and also hold them accountable to their actions. And I think that's a really important piece, is that it's not that they don't have to, not pay for what they've done, but not that they are not held accountable for what they've done. They just don't have the formal charge against what they've done. So that's a really important piece. And the reason, and you're right, community, where does community fit in all that? The volunteers that sit on the committees are from their community. So there's multiple around the city, and we pull together groups of caring adults who want to support this young person to be held accountable, and then therefore go on to make different choices. And so often we hear as feedback from the young person going through a youth justice committee process is, I didn't know so many adults cared. I didn't know I had people like this in my community. And so that's a really rewarding part of what we do and a rewarding part of the Youth Justice Committee program. Another program that we have that has been around we're going into our 13th year, is called In the Lead. And this is the one I'm most involved in my day-to-day. And what this is it's a unique leadership development program for overlooked young leaders. And so what's an overlooked young leader? Well, I would say many of the youth that we work with wouldn't typically be viewed as leaders. In fact, I'd say a lot of youth and young people aren't viewed as leaders. Because they're not necessarily able to contribute in ways that the world values, and or they are consumers of services and resources, which is true as well. But they still have this amazing potential to be a leader and to give back and to contribute. And so In the Lead is designed to help them see that in themselves. It can be very hard for young people to see their potential and see the strengths within themselves. And so our curriculum is really designed to shine light on those things. It's designed to reduce risk-taking behavior. So it is a little more preventative versus for youth already involved in the justice system. It's, hey, let's just not get them there in the first place. That was really kind of the original inspiration. It builds their resilience, and it connects youth to themselves. It connects them to their families, and then it also connects them to that community that you mentioned. And we do this through volunteers as well. So all of the young people that go through the In the Lead program are given an adult mentor. I air quotes again for you listeners, because we actually call them coaches instead of mentors. And we do that very intentionally, again, to flip the coin a little bit and flip the idea that an adult has all of this wisdom to impart on these empty vessels of young people, when the reality is, no, they have all of that inside them. They have that wisdom. They need a coach to come along beside them and encourage them and to keep shining light on that wisdom and those strengths. And so we intentionally chose the word coach instead of mentor, because we really wanted it to be seen as almost a parallel journey to that place of strength and that place of empowerment. And so that's, again, another really incredible connection to community. They also, at the cohort themselves, build a beautiful community together, and they walk away with really deep connections to each other and their peers, and also the facilitators that run the program as well. And so In the Lead is a 12 to 14 week program. It includes volunteers, as I said. It also takes place in schools as well as community settings. So we work in a lot of high schools. We work with some junior highs, and then we also work in community settings with some other youth serving agencies. So for example, Youth Community Health Center. We work with an agency that works with newcomers to Canada, for example. We work with programming that supports gender diverse young people, and we offer our programs to them as well. And then a few years ago, we evolved In the Lead to an In the Lead 180 program. And what we saw is, why don't we take this 12 to 14 week program and offer it to the youth in the justice system? And so we adapted it to be shorter, but maintained all of those protective factors that reduce those risk-taking and therefore, bad choices and potential criminal behavior. We kept all of those core competencies and those factors, and we just put it into a package that's a little bit shorter so that youth involved in the justice system can participate. 12 to 14 weeks is often too long for when it's a sanction. So when there's a file that comes out of court or comes through the youth justice committees, the file has to go back, and it's not usually 12 to 14 weeks. As well as our young people in the offender center, so young people who are incarcerated, they're often not there for very long. 12 to 14 weeks would be a very long stay. And so we wanted to offer a program that they could still participate in for the duration of their residency, let's call it, in a young offender center. So we adapted it to be able to support more young people who need us.
I am so amazed by how far your reach go. Like, the way that you're really looking at the different moments in life or the different contexts that youth come to you. The fact that you are able to help out these migrant kids, right? People that are coming from different contexts and still trying to find themselves within themselves, because, you know, our teenage years are not easy. It's so hard to find that. And then having a new place to deal, a new culture sometimes. It's really amazing to hear about it, Jill. And I want to keep up on this positive note. And actually, before I go to my next question, I'm going to make a pause here to tell people to go to your page, because we have covered some ground here, but we have not at all
I could talk all day. I could
talked
talk all
about the
day.
whole thing. So everyone now go to their page. It's calgaryyouthjustice.ca. We're going to find the link to this page on the description of the episode as well, so it's easy to click to find it. And understand more what's going on, learn more, because you're going to get information, you're going to get data, you can see who is behind it. I think it's so important to give names to everyone that is involved. And it's much more information than we are going to cover here.
That's right.
Now,
I will say, if I may, Danielle, jump in
course.
just to say one of the more recent and something we're very excited about is we are actually serving youth across Alberta now, which is very exciting. And so we have stretched beyond Calgary's borders, and now we get to support young people across the province, which we're very proud of and excited to do.
As you should be, because, you know, be able to offer this extension of work again to a much bigger region, a much bigger area, taking on more people. It's a shown of strength. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
see, you're doing it already.
reliability, right? And reliability. I feel like it's a sturdy, you know, it's something that your history really backs you up for. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. We're very proud.
Now, the next question, again, in the positive tone that we were talking, what are the next steps for you guys? I mean, you just said that you're expanded, but I believe that you guys have something cooking for the next year. So what's going on?
Yeah, great question and good timing. We actually just went through our strategic planning process. We're at year 5 of our last 5-year plan. And so now we're looking at the next 5 years, which is always exciting. And I would say, I mean, doing more of what we're doing would be the answer. Let's reach more youth. That's always goal number 1. How do we connect? You know, we're really trying to troubleshoot some barriers that we didn't necessarily foresee in some of our programming. For example, on some of our far north and our more rural communities, access to technology makes it really hard to participate in programming. So we're going to work really hard to try and understand how we can overcome some of those barriers. So that's certainly a goal. And then offer programming, go in person to offer programming to those communities that don't have access to great programming, like big centers in Calgary and Edmonton, for example. So that is certainly going to be a goal. How do we make this equitable so that all youth can participate? That's certainly a goal. And I would say, you know, we always talk about, okay, well, what's next? We hit our Alberta target and we hit our Alberta goal. And now do we go national? Maybe. Hard to say. That's the 5-year plan. But I would say for us, we really want more people to know about us. We really want people to know us, to support us, but also know us to make sure that if there's youth in their life who need us, that they know how to find us. And so that's going to be a really big focus in the near future. We are not necessarily a household name, even though we've been around for 25 years. But I think one of our goals is that people do know, and maybe not household, but certainly we're out there more and we're in front of people more. So that will certainly be a goal in the coming years and year for sure. And then, you know, there's lots of opportunity for more diverse programming. And I think that's one of our goals that came out of our strategic planning is we have 3 amazing programs now. but we see opportunity for more and more ways to support young people facing some of these barriers, particularly youth coming out of the justice system. Where can we support them? Where are there gaps that we can fill? I work with an amazing team of brilliant minds and creative thinkers and idea people, and we're always thinking of ways to do more and do better. So that's what we get to spend the next few years exploring.
Oh, I am eager to see where you guys are going to get with that. And I love this perspective of reaching areas that don't have easy access to technology and all of this. It is a huge issue. And I think it's something that we forgot now that most of us have such an easy way to connect, right? After COVID, this was one thing that really popped out. So it's great that you guys have this in mind. And considering it, how can our listeners or people watching us on YouTube can get involved, can help you guys achieve these goals?
Yeah, well, I mentioned one. We just want people to know about us. So talk about us. Share this with your friends. Share this with your colleagues, with other parents. That parents are one of those people who always come to us saying, "Help! How can you help my kiddo? He's in trouble or she's in trouble." So just sharing about us is such a huge way to support us. We all know a young person who likely could access our programs and needs to access our programs. Maybe you're not in Alberta and I might not be able to help you, but reach out anyway, because we can plug you into resources. Obviously volunteers, huge. We need a ton of volunteers. We can't do what we do without our community, without our people. So certainly sign up to volunteer, and get involved with a young person who has no idea, like I said at the very beginning, that there's so many adults out there that care. Like, let's make sure young people know that. And that's certainly a big ask. And then, of course, Danielle, I'd be lying if I didn't say funds and fundraising, right? I mean, we're a charity. We and to do what we do costs money. And so, hey, if you can't get involved, if you don't have kiddos that can be involved, you can always click on a donate button if that works for you. So all of those ways are of great. We are greatly appreciative of any of those kinds of efforts.
Jill, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a great conversation. Again, we're going to leave the link to your page in the description here. So guys, reach out. If you don't know how you can help right now, maybe just get to know more about them, reach them on their socials, get in touch. That might be a first way to start. So thank you so much for joining today, Jill.
Thanks so much for having me, Danny. This is great.
It was a pleasure. And for everyone else listening or watching us right now, thank you once again for staying with us for this more episode. And remember, if you enjoyed it, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that shows the algorithms that this is an important conversation and we can spread the word about the importance of the Calgary Youth Justice Society. Get involved if you can, and I see you in the next episode.